thinking. An error occurred. All right. All right, we're live. Boom. Let me make sure we're live on Instagram. All right, here we go. What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Two Lost Office Hours, where we talk with some of the dopest people in the music industry serving independent artists. And today we have another special one. We have the folks over at Even. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves, but I like to start out these sessions just getting a win from the past week. Now, it could be personal, business related, big, small. Celena, what's one of your wins from the past week?
Oh, one of my wins from the past week is I'm mixing and mastering my albums coming out on Sunday. Very excited.
Oh, you're an artist as well. No, I didn't even know that. That's super dope. Congrats on that. Mag, what you got for us this week?
I think even related, we did this campaign with this incredible artist out of the DR. And I'm only sharing this because he shared it first, but his name's Tali Goya, and he made like $4,000 in like a day with like 150 fans on the platform with a single too, which is crazy. So the average fan was paying like $18 to listen to a song before it was made available anywhere else. So yeah.
Okay, we're gonna definitely have to circle back to that later in the conversation and figure out how that happened. That's a little teaser for everybody watching this. But again, welcome to Two Lost Office Hours. Those are some great wins. We try to start off with some positive energy, so some wins that we can feed off of going into the week. But again, we have the team from Even here. Celena is the head of artist relations, and Mag is the founder and CEO of Even. If you haven't heard of Even at this point, you've probably just been living under a rock, or I don't think you even take your career seriously. But Even, how did you come up with the idea? There's so many people in the space. Like, what did you feel like Even could do differently?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so just a little background. I've been working in music for a long time. I think like 12, 13 years. Started off as a manager, and kind of played at every level that you can think of as far as when we think about, just like the music industry. And then I ventured off into venture. So I worked at a venture firm for a number of years. And during my time at this venture fund, I was exposed to a music tech program that we ran for.
Time out, man. Hold on. People don't typically just manage and then venture off into a venture fund. We have to figure. I need some more details on how that happened. How did that piece happen?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I was a manager, like I was full-time managing straight out of high school, did that for like 6 years. And then in 2018, I moved back to my hometown of Milwaukee, and I met these two guys, Joe and Troy, who ran a venture fund called Generator. And they wanted to essentially build an accelerator. And accelerators are essentially like incubators for startups. At like the very early stage, but they wanted to do that, but for artists and managers. I had never heard of venture before up until that point, but I found it really fascinating that there were all these resources for essentially tech companies to incubate, build, grow, get funding, and then become massive companies. So I found the model really fascinating, and they hired me to essentially build it. So I built that in 2018. It was in Milwaukee, Detroit, Cleveland, and through that program, we essentially did a partner with Universal, where we took the Motown brand back to Detroit to launch the Motown Accelerator program in partnership with Universal and Capital. That led Generator to launch a music tech program with Universal. And that was really my first exposure to music tech. And one of the common themes that I found there is that a lot of the people that were trying to build the tools for tomorrow for the music industry had never actually worked in music before, in the sense that they had never worked with artists directly, had never worked with fans. They didn't understand the unwritten rules of the industry, and in some cases, the written rules as well. So I wrote a white paper, and the white paper was called "It's Time the Music Industry Gets Even," and that's where the name came from. So in many ways, I had the name before I had the company, but the theme of this white paper was, what would happen if artists stopped giving away their music to streaming platforms for free and instead sold it to their community first before they made it available on streaming platforms? And a lot of the references that I used were like movie theaters, right? A film like Barbie or Dune can go to movie theaters and can recoup before it even goes to streaming platforms. We all know Barbie was going to be available on a streaming platform at some point, but it still grossed, over $1 billion before it even went to streaming. Gaming, very similar. There's every major game that comes out, you can pay to play it early before it's made available to the general public. So how is it that these other industries have been able to manage this idea of community building around early access before the wide release, except for the music industry? So the idea is very straightforward. It had just never been done at this capacity before, and that's really what we've been able to unlock. And a lot of it is just like through partnerships with companies like Tulos, where we can partner directly with distributors to incentivize the artists to essentially build a business around themselves as they're also distributing to the DSPs. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. But the piece that I want to hone in on is that it's never been done to this capacity. Because obviously, I come from the independent space, where like this concept, the concept is not new. But what exactly do you mean by like? Because at the time there was, and there still is, like Bandcamp, and you can have a Shopify store. Like, what did you feel like you could do differently, or what did you mean by like at this capacity? Where did you see the opportunity?
Yeah, I think the capacity ties into different buckets, but I'll start with the most obvious one, which is all the like consumption when we think about transactions with consumers in the music industry is in a way that almost feels like a donation, right? When we think about, a Bandcamp, and by the way, I'm a big fan of platforms like Bandcamp. You can listen to the music, and then if you want to pay, you can pay. It almost feels like when you're walking through the subway and there's a guitarist playing and they have their guitar case open, we're like, oh, that sounds really good. Like, I didn't have to pay to listen to this, but here's money. That has traditionally steered, artists with a capital A. It's kind of like the joke that we use. But, when we think about artists that actually take their music serious, they don't want a tip for their music. They want to be compensated for their music. And there's a huge difference between that. And for us, that's why with Even, it's not donate directly to the artist. It's buy the art from the artist. So I think there's a core component around the messaging and the language that we use to really empower musicians to let them know that you have a product that people want to buy. So give them the opportunity to buy directly from you. When they pay a subscription on a streaming platform, they're not paying you to listen to your music. They're paying a company that licensed your content, and then they pay you whenever they want to pay you at the rate that they want to pay you. And you have no really control around that. With platforms like Even, you can set your price and your fans and community can essentially compensate you for your art. So that's what I mean around the capacity, like the core component. And I think the other component too that I think is really important is accessibility, but also user friendliness, right? People don't want a zip file with MP3s. That's not how the new generations are consuming content. We prioritize convenience and accessibility. Is this going to be easy, seamless for me? When you think about a Bandcamp or a Shopify, you're paying for a zip file or a Dropbox folder, and then you got to download it, plug in your phone to the computer, put it into whatever you're listening to your music, and it all of a sudden becomes a burden. With Even, you buy, you listen right then and there, right? In under 2 minutes, you're listening to the music. And in many cases, you are saving your fans time. I always make the joke that it's easier to buy a release on Even than it is to pre-save a song. Pre-saving doesn't really do anything for the fan, and I could argue that it does nothing for the artist as well. So with Even, there's a direct conversion of currency, right, and a transaction, but there's a reward on the other side for the fan as well. So a lot of cases, artists are replacing their pre-save campaign with an Even campaign. Since at the end of the day, not only are they making money, but they also own that relationship with that fan, whether it's through platform or just by the fact that we hand over all the first party data to them as well. Again, hopefully that all makes sense.
No, for sure. It definitely makes sense. Celena, as head of artist relations, obviously you're talking with artists all the time. In addition, and Mag just kind of laid out, the value add of using Even, but are there some other like key selling points that artists are getting excited about on the platform, and what are some of those?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest one top of mind is the fan data component. I think much like what Mag was mentioning is this whole pre-save idea, right? I come from a space both on the label side, the distro side, even the manager side, where I'm setting up these pre-save campaigns, and in return, it's just providing convenience to the fans to have it automatically added to their library. But when I'm working with a label, they're getting that access to the data because they essentially distributed the music. So here I am left with, the idea of, okay, great. Like I've generated X amount of pre-saves, but I don't know who these people are. With Even, we provide the first party fan data, and it can get super granular down to consumption, to their name, their email address, phone number, their location, their method of payment, how much they spend in the currency, all down to those nitty gritty details, which, if you've never had access to fan data before, it might be like, what do I do with all of this? Thankfully, we have tools in addition to receiving your fan data to actually communicate with fans through Fan Connect, to, our version of what you would consider a Laylo or community or your own email newsletter, and essentially being able to speak directly to them. You could segment out your fan list. Let's say you have a show coming up in Atlanta and you want to give, your top 10 fans in Atlanta an opportunity to have a meet and greet before the show or invite them to an after party. You could do that directly through there. I think that there's lots of tools that maybe allow you to have that first party data, but it's so expensive. I think even myself going through this process of being a quote unquote artist and uploading to the platform and doing all that, I'm realizing how expensive it is, and having more tools for the data that, I earned or that an artist earned, it should be, at a price that is fair and easy to manage with or without a big team behind you. So I think that's one of our other features. And I think outside of that too is just kind of testing to see what your fans gravitate towards. So the product itself, right? Like I've worked with artists who aren't going into album cycle or don't really have a release coming up, but they never sold directly to their fans before. And so I think that even really allows for them to at least see what people gravitate towards, what they're interested in, even down to figuring out what songs they should add to their set list through our community chat feature, or just having a chance to have a direct conversation with them through that as well. And I think the last component to really hit on is kind of like what Mag alluded to, right? Like the accessibility factor of it. There's people globally who are using the product, using it not only in their native language, but also paying in their native currency, just making it a lot easier and accessible for them. So I feel like those are the areas that I speak to towards the most for the product, and like what really lends itself to artists and their teams to make it easier.
Yeah. No, the data piece is crucial. It's unfortunate sometimes because I feel like even on Two Lost, like we offer advanced analytics. Obviously, working with Even, you can get access to analytics and data and things like that. I don't feel like artists are really like taking advantage of the power of that data. Are there some artists that, even if you don't name a name, like are they doing something interesting with this fan data? Is there like, okay, just with the fan data itself or any of the analytics on the platform, who has actually used that and taken action? And again, feel free to use the name or not use the name if it's sensitive.
Yeah, I could do a quick one, and Celena probably has, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of these. One of my favorite ones from recently was with Starlito. So Starlito is this artist out of Nashville, incredible, just overall lyricist. He released his album on Even, and he was charging $100 minimum to listen to this album. Now, the cool thing about this is his access or the rewards. So within Even, we have a thing called access points. These are essentially additional things that you can pay for as like rewards. His access that he created is, you buy my album, I will call you personally and say thank you. So he started doing it, and people started recording the calls and posting them around social media, where it ties into some of the stuff that Celena was talking about. This became a marketing driver. The artist gets direct access to the phone numbers, emails, date of birth, you name it. All of that data is for the artist to own and manage. Directly on his dashboard, he would see, oh, this fan in France just bought my album, I'm going to give them a call. And he started calling these fans, and it created this idea of proximity that traditionally fans don't have to their favorite artists, right? I always make the example that the data shows that only 10% of the world population will ever have the opportunity to see their favorite artist live. and have direct proximity to them. We're talking about 90% of the world population. Starlito has never toured France before, but he had a fan who paid for it in France, and all of a sudden Starlito's on the phone with that fan because they paid $100. That is going to be a lifelong fan. This might have been the first time that fan ever bought anything from Starlito, because traditionally there's nothing you can buy. I always make the joke that, like, if I give you $100 today and I tell you go buy something from your favorite artist, unless they're in cycle, promoting a product, doing a merch drop, or maybe on tour, it's almost impossible for you to give that artist $100 and get something in return back. And this gave them an opportunity to do so. And that was an exciting way where the artist is using the data in real time. But I'm sure Celena has other ideas of not real time, at least.
No, I mean, that's fire. I think there's other artists that maybe don't want to be as forward facing. And so using certain features like our community chat is super easy to manage, right? I think, Lion Babe is like my favorite example. They put their album on even, I think, 4 or 5 months ahead of their DSP release date, and then Tandem were releasing to DSPs. And so they were super serving their main, core audience while also driving discovery and other areas for more passive listeners. I think one of the funnest things I was able to see through the chat was they were getting feedback in real time from their fans down to what their set list is going to be for their tour that is happening, I want to say, this week. Also remixes, merch items. They ended up, redelivering the album on Even with an extended version and 4 additional remixes that were only available on Even, and then use that to drive, traffic back to the release page. And so I think that's like a really low lift way just to get feedback in real time. Another artist that I've worked with, he had a lead single that he wanted to go with once he went live to DSPs, and he noticed the consumption because it's showing like on our Even for Backstage, which is essentially like Even for Artists. It showed the consumption and where people were streaming the most. He completely pivoted his lead single and went with something else based on the data that he was able to get there, which was another low lift. So yeah, I've seen it work in real time. I've seen artists pivot. I've seen people monetize teasers and everything too. But I think those are probably like one of my favorite examples.
Nice. There was a recent video. I wouldn't necessarily say it was viral, but it got around. DDG suggested that he doesn't like get close to fans because he feels like when fans get too close, they stop supporting. I've traditionally seen the opposite. I would imagine you just gave examples of like, the opposite happening on E. What would your response to that be?
I mean, I personally don't know enough about the DDG business, like to really comment. That might be working for him, and I think if that's working for him and his team, that's incredible. I would be curious to know how many sold out shows has DDG done and his team has done in the past. How many tour runs has he done in the past? What I can only speak on the artists that we work with, where you take a La Russell, where La Russell can go to any city where he has sold an album and sell out in a matter of hours without even announcing it on social media. I mean, he's selling out residency shows in his backyard years in advance. And that's a testament of like touching the people and really cultivating an audience. I do think that we sometimes confuse, and artists, managers, industry people will confuse followers with fans. Now, if we're talking about, I don't want to engage with followers all the time, 100% agree with you, because followers can be really toxic. There's a lot of trolls on the internet. And when you have millions of followers, it can get really nasty because you're engaging with people that don't really care about you. They're just there to, get a reaction out of you. What I could tell you is we've never had to block a user on the platform that bought an album, because to buy something means to be a customer. And to be a customer means you actually support someone and want to engage with him or her and the community around them. You're entering a community. Of course, eventually we'll probably see bad actors, but we have systems in place for that. Social media doesn't offer you that. I can go and follow someone I actually don't know and don't care about and start commenting on every single post, just negative, 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 negative. And someone might call me a fan. Someone be like, dang, your fans don't really like you. So I think there's a difference to really understand. And it goes back to the conversation around data. If you don't ever sell anything, directly to your fans, you don't know who are your fans or who are your followers. So I think that's a really important distinction to like keep in mind as you're, building an audience and talking to people. And before you make statements like that, I'm a strong believer that especially people with audiences should be very careful with the information that they give out, because it might deter another artist who's like, oh man, DDG said I should never do this. And that means I'm just going to be mysterious on the internet every day and not engage with people. When we think about businesses, I mean, even this Dame, which you're hosting here every single Monday, you're touching the people, right? You're talking to a community of artists who need information, who need education. Dame does not need to be doing this. Dame has already done incredible things, right? But I feel like it just speaks to the level of like the people will go where the true leaders are in this space. So I think it's important for artists to also see themselves in that way. And maybe they don't see themselves in that way because of the way that the system has been set up, and someone probably lied to him somewhere along the line. So again, hopefully that makes sense.
Now, there's a lot of bad information out there. That's why we try to prop up the platforms that we align with. That's why we have this. That's why we're having you guys on. We're taking questions from the audience as well. So we're simulcasting to LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. I have Instagram up here. I don't always see the questions because they don't flow through the StreamYard. But if you have a question, just put it in the chat. It looks like we already have one here. Atiba G. Shelton, how do people monetize teasers? Has somebody monetized a teaser on Even before?
Yeah, I could kind of speak to that. So as Mag mentioned, on Even, we have what we call access points, which is essentially what artists are offering to people to purchase, right? So one artist, her name's Alex Molly, she had a single release on Even. Another one of her access points was a merch item, kind of like a behind the scenes lyrical breakdown of the single. And then her last access point is what she was calling a mystery box. Essentially, the mystery box was a 45-second demo of her next single. And I think the tiered price for that was $25. So people were paying $25 just to hear a snippet of her next upcoming single. So that's like an example of how I've seen people monetize it. I've also seen people just put like a sampler pack of their album up, just to see what people are going to gravitate towards. I think that we're becoming more trained as consumers to, one, look for teasers on certain social platforms and press artists over and over again until they formally release it. And it's great that it's getting traction and engagement. But imagine if they don't have either a certain threshold of views on a weekly basis or a certain threshold of followers to really start monetizing their socials. They're missing out on bread in that sense. But on Even, you could do it directly without those barriers.
Gotcha. So what if the artist that's watching this is like, I don't know if I'm ready to use Even. I don't know if it'd be successful. Like, what do you feel like needs to be in place before an artist gives a campaign a shot on Even?
I think the willingness to work is, I think, important. This is not snake oil. I say this every day. You could come to Even and make real money, but it takes work. This is if you're ready to run your business like a business. It doesn't matter at what stage you are. We have artists with, I have this like chart next to me with 32 monthly listeners that made $1,900 in 14 days. We have artists with 300 monthly listeners that made $5,000 in 14 days. We see it all the time. You don't need hundreds and thousands of monthly listeners and followers. You just need a community around you that wants to consume something and be prepared to sell them that. And then the most important part is be prepared to serve them. The moment you sell a product, you have to serve that customer. So if you promise them a virtual release party or you promise them a call, make sure you fulfill that, or else people are going to be calling you and saying, hey, where is my thing that you promised me? So I think it's just a layer of wanting to do it. I always give the example of when we started doing case studies with artists that hadn't reached, the hundreds and thousands of followers, and we saw them doing really well. I started calling them and just being like, hey, tell me about your campaign and what you did. And they're like, man, I released on the platform and I started calling my friends and family and immediate community, and I sold 50 units and made $1,000. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, traditionally. I'm like, did you do something different than before? They're like, no, normally when I released a new project, I would send it to the same people, but they would just go stream it on X platform. But I only have 200 monthly listeners. And I'm like, well, that means 200 people in your community cared enough to go listen to your music. And now they have an opportunity to buy something from you. And 6 months later, that artist did a release and made $5,000 on the platform. And they're probably going to release again in the next 6 months. Because the first thing that happened too, I asked them, how did you use this money when you created your campaign? They didn't say I cashed out and went bought clothes or sneakers or whatever, right? They went and started working with Symphony, started running ads, right? Started, paying for distribution to get additional analytics. They were able to invest back into their business, build their audience, so the second time around they can scale. And that's how every other business in the world works. So if you're ready to really create a tangible scaling method, because it costs money to really scale your business, then Even is for you. If you just want to release music for the sake of releasing music, then keep it a hobby. And that's totally fine too. Like I've never shamed an artist for just simply saying, I just want to make music and put it out in the world. I think that's also okay as well. But that's usually like the advice that I would give an artist.
Yeah. And I think it's important, like if you launch a campaign, you really have to go hard and promote. You can't be shy. Like the campaign is not going to sell itself. Like I've worked with artists that have a lot of followers on like different campaigns, and the campaigns aren't successful because they just thought, oh, the followers are going to see it. People are going to pay. They're going to like, no, even artists that are much bigger have to constantly educate, remind, especially with, the reach on social media not being the best. You have to constantly engage your community and let them know like what it is that you have for sale, why they should be a part of it. They have to feel the enthusiasm and understand the story behind it. I guess that's not a question, that's more of just a random comment, but I think you guys would co-sign that, right? There it is. Boom. We got some more. We've got some more questions from the audience here. Kim Burley asks, are fans able to bid on an item on Even? For example, there's only one product for sale. The highest bid attains it after a certain time frame. Are we eBaying on Even, essentially?
You have the flexibility to do whatever you want. You can create your campaign in whatever way you want it to be. We've seen artists do. Recently, we did a release with a Colombian artist. Her name's Fariana, and one of her access points was one fan who buys the album will receive a signed kit, essentially of like all of her merch for that album cycle, and a piece of memorabilia associated with it from like one of her music videos. We've seen artists do the fan who pays the most will get X thing. So you have the flexibility to do whatever you want. It's important to note that 99% of the releases on Even are done on a pay what you want model. And what that means is you set your minimum, your suggested price, and then you can actually create tiers. So the more that they pay, the more that they unlock. But a fan can pay as much as they want. And we've seen fans pay over $3,600 for albums on the platform in scenarios like this, where like, I have this one thing, and if you want it, you can pay whatever you want above that. Now for legal purposes, we can't show what people are paying in live. Like, so it can't be like a leaderboard where it shows this person this paid this much. We run into a different, category if we were to do that. But that's where the beauty of like you as an artist or manager having direct access to the data of how much X fan paid for, that release.
No, the pay what you want feature I think is cool because you never know like who you have as a fan, right? You might have some people that are struggling to get by and they might not be able to pay anything for your music. But then you might also have the other side of the spectrum. You might have some people that are flushed with cash and would more than happy be willing to give you $1,000, $2,000. You never know who's in your fan base until you, like Mag said earlier, present them the opportunity to participate and pay for something a little bit more premium. A lot of questions came through. Let me see. This is, could you talk about the evolution of an artist? That's kind of, however you guys receive that question, feel free to answer it if you know kind of what he means by that.
Yeah, Celena, you want to take it on, or you want me to take it on?
Yeah, I'll kind of do my interpretation, and then Mag, you can add what you see fit. But I'll talk about it from one, just like the essential, maybe like journey of like uploading through Even and what that process looks like, but also talk about, from your first release to maybe like your 5th or 10th release, right? Uploading on Even is super easy. I think some people think that we're a subscription-based platform and artists have to pay. No, Even is entirely free for artists to use and for fans to access. Fans pay for what they want and don't pay for what they don't. Makes it super easy with, over 30 global payment methods, inclusive of Cash App, Klarna, Apple Pay, Google Pay, so on and so forth. So going through your upload process is a lot more, I think, user intuitive than maybe like a traditional upload process to DSPs. You put in all your metadata, your information, insert your splits, which is powered by Stripe, making it super simple to automatically pay contributors and collaborators to your project. And then, you set your waitlist date, which is essentially like our version of a pre-save campaign. It offers a space for fans to be notified and alerted when your release goes live. You still collect that fan data as well, regardless if they made that purchase. And then you set your release date. Typically, projects and songs on Even, they go live 7 to 14 days ahead of their DSP release date. And then from there, you'll see your funds in real time. You'll be able to cash out when you'd like to through Stripe. You're able to manage all of your claims or people who purchased, and you can talk to them there, and everything is done, through your Backstage account. And essentially, it'll be your hub for everything. But it makes it really simple as well. If you have an updated mix to a song, or maybe you finally got that feature in from an artist, you could quickly swap it out within a matter of minutes versus, however long it takes these days. But in terms of, the evolution of like the artist experience from their first release to their next one, I can almost guarantee that we see growth every single time. And that's not growth always necessarily in revenue, right? But more so in that data collection and maybe your access points, maybe your offerings, or maybe just like an influx of new fans or a different subset of fans coming in to purchase from you. I've seen growth over growth from singles to EPs to albums, and seeing people even who aren't artists upload to the platform or trying something else. Maybe they want to upload their album teaser that they're going to put for free on Instagram instead they're going to put it on Even. So I'm seeing so many different types of releases from artists and creators alike. And growth, over and over again. And it goes back to, this fan data component, right? Like even people who bought your first release, let's say you're on, your 5th release, right? You could message those fans who bought the first one and let them know that they have the opportunity to support you for the next one. So I've seen the growth with that. Hopefully that answered your question. Mac, feel free to jump in with like your point of view too.
I think the question can be interpreted a few different ways. What I would like to know though is, and I'm sure it's going to change depending on, from artist to artist, depending on what the community's like, quality of music, etc. But what has been kind of a good cadence to go back and do another release on Even? Like, what's the time in between that they should wait?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with like a component of that I think is important, which I talk about pretty often, which is if you've never made $1,000 from music and then all of a sudden you make your first $1,000, what will that do to you, right? Like the level of motivation as an artist, all of a sudden making your first $1,000, it changes your full scope. And we see it in real time. We'll see artists going from like the mysterious artist who like is releasing their first body of work to like being La Russell all of a sudden, creating content, pushing their releases, and talking about their campaign every day. We're also seeing artists like, take a Dizzy Wright, who traditionally releases like one body of work a year. He's released 3 albums on the platform this year. And a core component from that is you get paid daily, right? You make $10,000, you make $1,000 today, you have access to that money today. Now, when we think about streaming, you do 1 million streams today, that could equal about $3,000 to $5,000, depending on the region. You're not going to see that money for another 3 months, right? Or if depending on the distributor, 2 to 3 months. The problem there is all of a sudden you're having a moment in your community, and all of a sudden there's an opportunity to go tour. Maybe you need merchandise, but you might not have access to that capital. And maybe by the time you negotiate in advance with a label or distributor, that momentum might already be going down. Even offers an opportunity to have real-time capital to really finance your career and help double down on it as you make a decision. Artists tend to face this extreme level of pressure the moment something happens, and something good is happening, I should say. And even offers a level of like breathing room where like we can make more informed decisions, more educated decisions, because we have cash flow that's generating every day. So a lot of times we're seeing artists, they'll start with their campaign and they'll push their DSP release an extra week or an extra 2 weeks. Or in the case of a Lion Babe, it was like 6 months. They kept releasing singles on DSPs, but you can pay to listen to the album today. And that was all. That all happened in real time as they were launching their campaign on the platform. So that flexibility gives teams a sense of more, I guess, security in their decisions, and they don't have to make rushed decisions around like what it is that they have to do. And I think the other side of this too is the moment you have this data, you don't have to rely on the algorithm anymore. You can message these fans in real time, SMS, email, WhatsApp, whatever way you want to message them, which can empower the creator to really like push forward directly to their audience without having to. I think I've even seen some messages go out like, hey, I just posted on Instagram, go like my post. So I think there's an opportunity to do that as well. Hopefully that all brings it together.
I think also, just to tie that up too, one thing is there might be artists on like the total other end of the spectrum that has, a vast catalog or just a ton of things on a hard drive that they don't know what to do with. We do have a community feature, which is different from our community chat, but it's like really for artists who has like a constant output and capacity to share. So LaRussell has, such a vast catalog, and he's constantly in release cycle, but he's utilized our community feature, where essentially it's a pay what you want monthly membership for fans to opt into. And so they are deciding based on, his minimum price, how much they want to spend on a monthly basis to acquire all the content that he uploads, first access to opportunities, so on and so forth. And again, that's something that isn't mandatory for all artists to opt into, but it is an option if you are an artist that has that capacity and, has that type of fan base and demand. So there's options for that too.
Nice. Let's see, TT, the manager, I see all your questions. I'm going to pick a couple of them since you're a regular attendee to Two Lost Office Hours. This one should be quick. Is there team access as well?
Yeah, there's team access, there's record label access, and then there's individual artist access as well. Currently, we limit it to 2 access at the moment, but if needed, we can incorporate additional access. Since we are dealing with sensitive, first-party data, there is limitations. But yes, there is team access and artist access.
Boom, boom. And then, like I said, TT gets 2 questions because she shows up every week. Is there a success manager or someone to support the artist/team?
We do. We have an incredible client services team. Directly on your Backstage portal, there's a little chat button. We have someone 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern is when they're available to answer any questions around. And they're fully equipped to also help you develop your campaign. We have a set of playbooks. They can help you ideate. If you need any ideas or case studies, they're fully available to help support you as well.
Nice. Now, we cannot leave without talking about the Two Lost Even partnership, because I think sometimes when people hear some of the messaging around Even, it's kind of like I either stream or I sell direct, and it's kind of pitted against each other. Obviously, we talked about, just kind of a gating period and kind of using them in tandem, but now Two Lost and Even are in partnership. Mag, can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so I think one of the big misconceptions is that artists can just like create an account and like join even at any given time. That's never really been the case. If you're on the YouTube, or if you're watching from YouTube, you got a little link, which is a sneak peek that gives you access to the platform. Someone from the team posted it on there, but essentially the way that it works is we work with partners like Two Lost to authenticate your artist profile. This gives us direct access to create your profile based on your previous streaming data, your artist profile, bio, picture, streaming links, etc. It's not even or streaming, it's even and streaming, and partners like Two Lost are the core component to this. So this offers an opportunity for Two Lost to see how you're doing. We've seen artists that will do really well direct to fan that traditionally don't do well with streaming, and it offers a new data point for platforms like Two Lost to say, look, there's clearly something happening here. We should really get a sense of what's happening, especially because there's so much music, there's so many artists across DSPs. This offers an opportunity to like really double down. And then we also have some really cool incentives. We're offering non-recoupable marketing budgets. There's priority tools like Fan Connect, pitching tools for our editorial and social. So there's a bunch of cool features that I probably shouldn't even be speaking about, but it's really exciting what we can do with partners. So yes, if you're a Two Lost artist, you can use Even and be working with Two Lost at the same time and treating them both as really a combined effort as well.
And what's the timeline for this? Are we in action now, or what? Or I probably should know the answer to this. My bad.
I think we're in early stages. There should be it should be available to all Two Lost artists in the upcoming weeks. Fingers crossed. So pay attention to your email in the upcoming weeks to get a notification.
Dope. And that's one of the things I like about Two Lost, is because I feel like we're always like innovating the platform. Always looking for new partnerships to kind of push things forward, to come up with new ideas for features, more access to data. We're constantly evolving the platform, and this is one of the partnerships that we're super excited about. Celena, what's been your favorite release on Even, and who was it? What they do?
Oh no, that's a tough question. There's been a ton.
One it don't have to be your favorite, just like one
No.
like that you haven't mentioned yet that did something.
Yeah. I think probably like one of my first releases that I got to be a part of for Even was working with Carl Jones, who's like the creator of the Boondocks. He and his team, they had, dabbled into like the Web3 space. They had built out, Bubble Goose Ballers, which is essentially like their NFT, but they wanted to find a way to really elevate it and help it be evolved. So in the past, Carl has released a mixtape of sorts hosted by Thugnificent, a prominent character on the Boondocks. And so they went back to the studio, dropped another volume, hosted by Thugnificent, but powered through Bubble Goose Ballers, to give like a more tangible aspect to one of their lines of business. And it was a super fun project to work on. They had Larry June on it. They had really, really dope collaborators. And so having him be a part of the platform in a non-traditional setting in his eyes was really cool. He also hosted like a virtual Q&A. So fans got to talk to him about his creative process, his background, along with some exclusive content and everything. His announcement video also featured like the characters. It was like the first time I saw us do like an animated video with it, which was really fun. So that was like one of my favorites. And then a non-traditional one, probably recently through my friend Sierra. She's a genius. She dropped a playbook of her own sorts called An Introduction to Intertech, which is a term that she's coined. And so she's very passionate about bridging the gap between entertainment and technology and how it fits within the music landscape. And so she has her course available on Even. So it was really nice to see that along with like video content. So again, like seeing Even as more than just for artists has been really fun.
It's a small world. We got a meeting with Carl Jones. I manage a comedian named Big Job. We have a meeting with Carl Jones coming up super small world. And speaking of, because I know Mag, the last time I reached out, because we dropped a web series that we sold direct to fans on another platform. Is your platform equipped to handle video now? How does that work?
Yeah, so we're actually launching a couple set of features in the upcoming weeks. One of them is community. So it's for like, it's perfect for like podcasters, content creators that want to do a reoccurring subscription to their fan base. It's the first pay what you want subscription. So you get all the beautiful tools of Even, but in a subscription model. So really filling in the gap. Traditional subscription models are very one directional. It's like creator to consumer. Even offers these consumer to consumer, fan to fan engagement that people really enjoy on the platform. So I'm almost creating kind of like a triangle effect within a community, which really feels like a community, and it's called Community by Even. So that's perfect for those. And then we also offer experiences. So experiences are for non-music releases on the platform. This is perfect for films, poetry books. I mean, we've kind of seen everything. If it's non-music related, it's considered an experience as well. So we have like some films coming out on the platform, comedy specials, all kinds of stuff. The interesting thing about all this is like we started off in music, and we would see non-music creators try to join the platform, and we'll be like, this isn't for you, this isn't for you. And then one day we're like, actually, let's just try it. And that's where the magic happens every time. So,
but I mean, whether I'm working with a comedian or whether I'm working with a music artist, there's so much that overlaps. It's all community building and creating experiences for your fans. So, it's just comedy versus music. Nobody asked this, but what is the percentage take from Even for all of the different campaigns?
Yeah, so the platform is free, as Celena mentioned. There's no subscription component to it for either the fan or the artist. The way Even makes money is we only make money when you make money. So we take a 20% essentially charge on every transaction, but that's inclusive of all transaction fees, all currency conversions. We report to the MLC. We have licenses with the PROs. All of that is included in Even's 20%. So traditionally, traditional platforms, you'll pay a subscription plus you pay all the fees. We absorb that in our 20%. Now that's for releases and experiences. For our subscription model, we also absorb all the fees, but we only take a 15% take rate. So we try to just keep it as clean as possible. And that also includes payouts. Traditionally, we've seen platforms charge for payouts. That's fully inclusive in our percentage as well. So.
It looks like Isabella from LinkedIn wanted a little bit more clarification here. What differs with the experiences page?
The experience pages just doesn't have an audio player. So this is traditionally for non-music releases. So there's no audio. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're releasing a short film, and it's a short film with, of course, will come with a video player. It'll have a chat. Maybe there's a virtual release party. Maybe there's even a merch item that you want to associate with your campaign. So experiences are releases without any audio.
Yeah. And then Kimberly also wanted a little clarification. When will the non-music artist feature be available? It's available now, right?
Yeah, that's available now. So it's not publicized yet, but you'll start to see that roll out in the upcoming weeks.
Okay. So I promised the team that I would look at the Instagram chat, because the Instagram chat, again, doesn't flow through to StreamYard, so I have to look at it separately. I'm about to go through here and just see if there's any questions from our Instagram fam. This question is probably a little bit too basic now. She said, how does this platform differ from TuneCore, United Master, etc.? You can watch the replay of this conversation on YouTube. So as soon as we're done, the replay will be available on YouTube. So I would suggest anybody that hopped in late to go back and watch it from the beginning, because a lot of gems were dropped, a lot of great information around Even and the Even squad. Looks like no other questions except for just a lot of love and praise for the platform. Is there anything that I missed that you guys would like to highlight about Even?
I think for me, it's always like I like giving people my contact, which the team kills me for every time. But if you want to get a hold of me, shoot me an email, mag@even.biz. It might take a little bit to respond, but always feel free to reach out. I am the CEO, but I am really customer service at heart. Although my team hates me for it, but if you have any questions, big or small, whatever it is, feel free to reach out. Always happy to chat and make some time to answer any questions.
And that's dope that you give your email out. I'm sure you get a lot of emails. For people that attended our Game from the Gods event, then you got a lot of feedback and suggestions on how to stand out when you're sending people an email or a DM. So if you saw Game from the Gods, use some of that information to try to stand out amongst the hundreds of people that I'm sure are hitting up Mag every single week. Celena, anything else that you think we should add or talk about?
I feel like that covers it. I think I did see another question just about, when is an artist ready for even? I would say now, right? Like, I think sometimes people ask me what's the threshold, of like what you look at to support an artist on the platform. I don't necessarily look at their followers or how many monthly listeners they have, especially because a lot of that stuff could be contrived and bought. I'm more interested in, what's the conversion from having a post to, having a fan respond and then an artist respond back to them. Like, what does that look like? What does it look like to have an Instagram broadcast channel? Or, how active are they in their YouTube community? Like, all that stuff feels like it holds a little bit more weight. As Matt kind of mentioned, just like the difference between artists and how many monthly listeners they have to revenue. On paper, people look at that, especially those within the industry, and be like, how? Or maybe they wouldn't invest in it. But I think that you would be surprised, right? If you have a song and you want to have the opportunity to talk to your fans, or you want to see what they want to gravitate towards, there's no harm in trying the platform. It's free. You don't have anything to lose. So I would say, yeah, just that's when you could start now. That'll be my last thing.
Yeah. I think now is a great time to start. I would also just kind of see what's going on the platform, learn from the successful campaigns, see what ideas you might want to kind of steal and add to your campaign. Hopefully you have some additional ideas to make it a little bit more creative and stand out a little bit. But I think we covered a lot. We covered a lot in the past hour. Mag, you came off mute. You got something for us?
No, not at all. Thank you for having us, Dame. I'm really excited to, partner with you guys, and been a big fan of you personally, Dame, for a long time. Big fan of, Two Lost as a platform and the work that you guys are doing in the space. So honored to just, be here and offer support. And I'm excited to help artists get even. So, reach out. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Now I try to tell people now is the best time ever to be an independent artist. You got so much freedom, so many features and tools like even that you can take advantage of. Celena, where can we listen to your music at? What can we be looking forward to? Might as well promote the music at the end. We might as well.
It'll be available on Even on Sunday. Yes, Sunday.
Okay. What kind of music is it?
Honestly, just something to throw on to work, to study, to pray. It's really just a reflection of the music that has really helped me over the last few months. So you can expect lo-fi beats, some binaural beats, some affirmations. But yeah, very light, very easy listen.
There it is. Vibe out with Celena. Coming soon. Cool. This has been another great episode of Two Lost Office Hours. Next week, we don't have our guest confirmed, so I can't promote that. But we will be putting together more dates for Game from the Gods. The first three went really well. DC, Atlanta, New York, a bunch of people came out. So we appreciate you coming out, especially if you're watching here. Thank you for coming out to those events. There'll be more soon. Until then, everybody have a great week. Lock in your wins. Share your wins for Share Your Wins Wednesday. And I'll see y'all soon. Peace. if you guys want to stick around for